this is something I made that's really the most interesting thing here. It's a solid body electric sitar, but it's probably the best instrument in the world right now. It's not even a tune, but it has quite a sound.
Yeah. Wow. That's an amazing sound.
Does anyone play electric sitar? Like
Now they are. I made 7. I've made all kinds of instruments, but of the electric sitar, I've made 7. And they were bought by people from all over the world. I'm constantly working on new things for it, but this one is the best one so far.
For how long do you have the store?
61 years.
61 years.
61 years. That's
It's
impressive.
amazing. The neighborhood
impressive.
probably must have
Changed?
really changed, no?
The whole world's changed.
The words. Yeah, that's true. Cool.
You know any 1950s rock and roll songs?
Yeah.
1950s?
Well, I mean,
Chuck Berry? What is 1950s?
yeah, like walk around
Chuck
the
Berry, I
block.
can tell you a funny story how I met Chuck Berry in St. Louis one day. It was 1967 and I was hitchhiking across the United States from San Francisco. And I get to St. Louis and I asked if there was any places where there might be hippies. So somebody sent me to this neighborhood called the Gaslight. And I get there and I got a sitar with me. And somebody says, "Oh, you got to meet Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry just wants to see your sitar. He'd love to see it." So they take me to this big mansion that Chuck Berry owns. He lives in it. And on the ground floor is a nightclub. I show him the sitar, I play a little bit, we talk. I tell him how he was a big hero of mine as a kid. And he says, "Stay the night." And then go on. And that night they raid his nightclub. And everybody gets arrested, including Chuck Berry.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
But I, smart, go up to the attic and climb in an air conditioner vent. The whole building was air conditioned, so there was a vent. I took the screws out and climbed in and stayed the night in the vent. Next day I hitchhike out of St. Louis and I get to New York. As soon as I get to New York, I get a job opening for Sly and the Family Stone. You've heard of them? Sly Stone? No. This is a very famous rock and roll band at that time. So I get a job opening in a big discotheque, and can't believe it. Here I had no money, nothing. I'm hitchhiking across the United States, and now I'm like a sort of a star. So I go at 3 o'clock in the morning to a little luncheonette after I finish playing. And who's sitting in the luncheonette? Nobody else but Chuck Berry. And Chuck Berry goes like, "Hippie, what happened to you, hippie? We wondered where you were. What happened to you? How'd you do it?" I told him the whole story. And it was funny. I put all the records away, nobody bought them. And then all of a sudden they came all back. And now they sell like crazy.
And the sound is actually
Oh, it's
might
better
be
than-
better than right.
It's actually a
CDs?
mystical experience. You know, you take a needle and you scratch a piece of plastic.
Mm.
By just making singing at the needle, right? It vibrates to your voice. And then you stick another needle in the piece of plastic and it sounds exactly like the voice. Nothing is lost. It's a perfect transmission of the vibrations. That's an amazing phenomenon in life. You don't really get that with a CD. But there is a physical reality to records. They're actually... But it's
Can we see the I'm really
Well,
curious
this
to
story
see
is... Let's see if I
visuals.
have I'll read it to you. This is the third...
So you're,
Come on
you're
downstairs.
doing.
Yeah, come downstairs. I'll read it to you, the story. This is the third story. The second 2 I've been selling at $1 each, but I just sold out of them. I got to print them up. I just got to go in the back and print them off the computer. But here is the latest version. Here is the latest version. So this is after the first 2 stories, which tell you how the Nile gets blocked with garbage.
Okay.
So it says here, "Gathered progeny of the most magnificent, Lord of the never-before-seen triumph over chaos and violence, all hail his 5 names." And then this guy whispers to the Pharaoh, "Ask him about the blockage in the river and all the dead fish." And he goes, "Ah, your Holiness, have no fears. I have recruited the best engineers, The misunderstanding, and you'll understand the misunderstanding, is kind of a stupid story. How the first story is a guy who is my super. He's like the super for my garbage. And he comes to me and he says that, and this is based on a true story. He says that he's getting fined by the Pharaoh's overseers for his waste. And they're very concerned about how the waste is being dealt with and so on and so forth. And they keep punishing him. So he says to me, he says, now I know you're a friend of people in high places. And I say, are you referring to the Pharaoh's grandson? And he goes, yeah, right. Anyway, you know Moses, maybe you could speak to him and speak up for me. So I say, okay, so Moses comes and we have a nice conversation. And I say, by the way, Moses, and Moses says when he first comes, he says, I miss you, I miss the people, the food, the music, and most of all, I miss your mother. And I say, Moses, you missed your mother the most. When things were really bad and there was food shortages, the Pharaoh had the poor abort their babies to the river so that the god of the Nile could then become fertile again and there would be again bounty for all the people. But once your mother had done that, her fertile breast then became a breast for my mother to have someone suckle me, or suckle you, Moses. You were suckled by who you think is your mother. My mother is not your mother. Your mother is the Pharaoh's daughter. And you were suckled by my mother, so you feel, Moses says to me, because of that I feel obligated to your people. So I say, well, if you have an obligation and you feel it, my super is getting fined all the time for what he's doing with the waste, So they want him now, it's like if it's Egypt's last hope, we got to put the food waste and the fertilizer waste and all this waste in different places. So that's how the first story ends. If I was empty Jeff in Egypt, I would have all the hindsight I needed to give other advice and predict many, many events. But easy to see. So that's what the comic book's about. But it's also a very great opportunity to show the world where it is now. Where the world was then is black people that ruled Africa, who were in ancient Egypt, were worried about this rise of the white man. And they needed a wall to keep the white man from invading Egypt. These rising civilizations in the north, just the beginnings were Babylon and Mesopotamia and all these things. So they took an army of the poorest people that were in Egypt and they sent them to Canaan to kill everybody in Canaan. That's the premise of the story. So this is the invention of a culture, religion, and a myth. There was a purpose for it in creation, that this is the needle that pricks every civilization. And then once the thread is pulled, all the world will come together and we'll all sing Kumbaya.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
See you again.
See you.